this time around, if you heard the intro, we've got John Register with us. If I'm going to read what he does, I think I'm going to feel ashamed because just looking at his bio, inspirational speaker. He was with us during Bounce Back. He's an author because I remember the last time I spoke to you in 2020, December, you were on your book writing retreat, and an Olympic qualified athlete and also a Paralympic medalist, a guy who's been in the army as well, a veteran who's been both in Desert Shield and Desert Storm. So thanks for 2021 and making me humble straight away at the start of the year, John.
Oh,
But I guess let's start it off this way, John. Like usually I do ask those who come on like certain situational things to begin, and I guess my question to you right now is it is a new year.
mm,
It is 2021, right? So we've had, and I call this an amazing 2020.
mhm,
And the reason why I call it an amazing 2020, yeah, there's a lot of really hard things that happened in 2020. But I think there's a lot of reevaluation that we had to do,
mhm.
especially as human beings, as how we live our lives, because some very quintessential things got taken away from us. And now we're here in 2021, and I think everyone has this hope that this year is going to be very, very different from the last year. So, how do you see 2021 being? Like, what is your sort of outlook, or let's say prophesizing of what 2021 is going to be like?
Well, Nigesh, thank you. I'm very honored to be on your show. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you opening the space for dialogue and conversation, especially at the top of the year. So,
Mhm.
thank you for your hospitality on this
Mhm.
wonderful show. When it comes to year by year, it's interesting to me always that whatever the year is, we have hope.
Mhm.
Whether it's after a year of a pandemic or it's we have a global pandemic, or if it's just the year going into the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
We always had this hope that comes and this freshness,
Mhm.
and it's fascinating to me that just because we go from a December 31st to January 1st,
Mhm.
that this expectancy comes.
Mhm.
And even with the turning of the page, I mean, I still got to get up and wash the dishes in the morning and go out for my run,
Yeah.
and all these things still happen,
Yeah.
but yet I'm filled with a greater hope, and hope
Mhm.
is powerful because when coupled with faith, and faith is, and for me, is something that is in the future. I can't yet grasp it, but it's coming
Mhm.
my way. It's like a water bottle, right? It's what my water bottle here. And if I yell up to my wife, "Hey, babe, I need a bottle of water. Can you bring a bottle of water?" And when I say that and I'm asking for it, it's already on the way. It
Mhm.
just hasn't arrived to me yet.
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
faith is a very tangible thing that we have. And then when we receive it, it's no longer faith. It becomes, it's an actual thing that we have.
Mhm.
But here's what I would say to those that are hoping in 2021. We need to we need to be hoping.
Mhm.
But I was talking to a friend of mine, and she says to me, we're building out this course module
Mhm.
on fear to freedom, the journey from fear to freedom, which we'll talk a little about today.
Okay.
And that is, she says, there was a woman who came from the future, and she
Okay.
arrived in 2020, and
Mhm.
she met the first person and said, "What year am I in?"
Mhm.
And she says to her, "You're in the year 2020."
Mhm.
To which the woman replied, "Oh, the first year of the pandemics."
Mm.
And I don't think we think about the other side.
Mm.
If we're not, what is my personal responsibility
Mm.
to showing up in
Mm.
my environment,
Mhm.
and not to the environments of others that other people want to hold me to, or
Mhm.
that society may want to hold me to, or maybe my family members want to hold me to. But what is
Mhm.
my personal responsibility? What am I going to do?
Right.
And oftentimes we push that out to others
Mm.
instead
Mm.
of owning it ourselves.
Right.
So yes, hope
Mhm.
and be responsible.
That's what caught me was when you said that term, because every time we turn a page, and you said it really right. You get up in the morning, you're still going to do the same things you did yesterday, but when you turn that page, it's like that hope and faith that you have that you're going into a new chapter, that you can write something completely new.
Yes.
But sometimes we forget that there is still history. There's still history that's following us. And if we are not responsible and for it, if we don't own it, then we're never going to learn from what we came from. And that saying that you said, that whole, the first year of the pandemic, I think we're trying to forget history so much that we're saying that 2020 is the year of pandemic, 2021 is not going to be the year of pandemic.
Right.
How sure are we? And if we say that, then we're just never going to learn of what happened from the last year.
Well, I guess that's exactly it. I mean, when we say that we kind of forget this history behind us, there is a moment where we have to, kind of own it. And every day is new.
Yeah.
And what we lost, what I talk about a lot, is maybe it's better to put it this way. What we discovered is that we didn't have certainty.
Right.
We thought we had certainty.
Right.
But we really didn't have certainty, and that we never had it. It was an illusion.
Right.
And that's what people, I think, are trying to get back to. They're trying to get back to a level of certainty. I want to know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we don't know what's going to happen. We never did.
We never did. Yeah.
So we plan, we do the best that we can in this day, hoping and faith will have a tomorrow, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. No one does. I don't know what's going to happen this afternoon.
Yeah.
I have a plan for it, but I don't actually know what's going to happen between now and that plan being executed.
And that, I agree with that as well. I was having a conversation with actually one of my colleagues today. And usually I do these one-on-ones with them. And we were talking about something like what you said about either what is going to happen tomorrow or how people are going to react to what I do tomorrow. And the thing that I believe in is exactly what you said. You cannot and you do not have control on the consequence that is going to come. You don't, because you haven't really done the act yet. There hasn't been the result that comes out. How people react to you it's a consequence as well. So you don't know what's going to happen. But what you have control over is what you choose to do. Every day from the point you wake up to the point you sleep,
yes,
you have a choice, and that choice is what you have most control of. And I think we tend to forget that every time we are thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen later, what's going to happen to that person when I talk to that person. We forget that the most important thing is I got to choose, and I have the responsibility to choose and the ownership to choose how I do it. Beyond that, it's the discovery. It's the discovery of what's going to happen, and then I choose again. Right. I think that is a very, very strong thing to really hold on to, and especially moving into a new year.
I think it's the quintessential thing.
Yeah.
And I know hopefully we'll get into some debate, because I love debating.
We will.
I think this is one of the quintessential pieces that we have to understand, that it is our choice, and we have to own our choices that we make, even if something totally terrible happens in our life. We can choose how we're going to respond to it. Now, we may not have all tools, the best tools to respond to things, but we still have to own the choice that we made, which then can put a whole list of outcomes into operation. And so that we get further on. I say to individuals a lot when I'm coaching, I say to them, well, I can tell what your life is like by just looking what's following after you. Okay. If there's nothing but destruction coming after you, if you're attracting all that to you, that's what you're putting out. And so you're reaping the fruits and the benefit of the life that you're living. So if you're attracting this wrong type of person all the time, then that's the vibe you're putting out. That's what you are laying out, and that's the product that you're getting from the seed that you're sowing. If you're getting a lot of people coming after you and saying, oh my gosh, tell me more. I want more of what you're, kind of throwing down. Then you're putting out that vibe. So,
Right.
we're responsible for that choice that we make. And if you want to change it, you have to change the output. You have to change what you're planning,
Right.
so that you get a different output. Yeah.
And what you own,
And what
in,
you
in
right.
the action that you do. And I think before we go too much into that conversation, I better bring it to the topic that we have today. I tend to do this, and every time we start a Talk to Me episode, we'll start with these conversations. They'll go on for a while, and then I bring in the episode. And every time, and this time around, we are virtual. So for those of y'all listening and later on watching this part of the show, we're virtual this time around. That's why I get to talk to John, who's all the way in Colorado right now. Usually, I'll be talking to someone in Malaysia. So it's awesome sometimes being virtual. Sashi is still here. He is right now in virtual production backstage somewhere there. So he's already given me a reminder that we should get to topic. But it's good that you kind of said that. You kind of said what follows you is basically based on the output that you're putting out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why we don't overcome adversity. And I think like I was reflecting the other day with a few of my colleagues as well. And this question came to me, and they were asking in a circle, like, what was your 2020 like, and how do you feel right now?
Mm.
And of course, a lot was saying that, yes, it was a hard year. I didn't know how to deal with this thing. I kind of trundled along and got through it. And then it came to me, and I said, like, you know what? This was a hard year. I don't know if I did the best job getting over or dealing with the adversities that came by. But what I kind of did was say that, you know what, I just got to go through it. And I had to, and I was in this weird position where, because things changed so rapidly, I kind of took that role of I needed to be whatever people needed me to be.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to be what the company needed me to be. I needed to be what a friend needed me to be. I needed to be what my wife needed me to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did that. And at the end of the day, what I felt, and I said this out, I felt exhausted. I felt exhausted because there was so much of these kind of adversities that happen. And I don't know if I ever did overcome these adversities. Was it just me just pushing it down and going through it and thinking that some way sometime I will deal with it? So that kind of made me think about this question, like,
Yeah.
why don't, or why can't we, or why are we not as good at getting over adversities? And I like to ask you that question to start things off, because when I read your bio from the beginning till where you are right now, there were a lot of rays of light,
Mm.
followed by some adversity or the other, and you somehow found moments to deal with that. So I kind of want to pick your brain, like, maybe if there's a starting point, like,
Sure.
yeah, like as a general thing, like in your interactions with people, and when you compare it back with your life, why do you think so?
It's one of those clickbait things, right?
Shh,
So,
don't tell anybody we did.
let me tell you the little story behind why I say this, and
Yeah.
why we don't overcome the adversity. I was preparing for a TEDx talk, my first TEDx talk.
Right.
And I was about to call the producer of the event and tell him, take me off the list. I don't have it. It's not there.
Okay.
And I was very serious. Now let me know, because everybody's like, I want a TEDx, I want to do a TEDx. I was, if the TED is supposed to be the thoughts and the ideas and the newness, I really didn't think I had anything. And I really almost got out of the speaker game because of it, because I thought I was just spitting off stuff that was not impactful. You could draw maybe your own conclusions from things.
Mhm.
But for me, it was, I need to it's never about me saying something. It's about the echoes that I want to come back to me.
Right.
It's about the people that I'm touching, and we all get to our mountaintops, and then we can yodel to each other, and we can have this fun experience because we're all rising to this mountaintop, and we can talk, we can share. And that wasn't happening. And I just couldn't see it. So I was talking with a friend of mine, We're having lunch about this like 3 days before the presentation now. And I'm about to say, I can't do it. So I say to him, as we're talking, I said, you know, had I overcome the amputation of my left leg, I'd have my leg back.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yeah, right. And I said, maybe there's something there. Because what we think we're getting back, we don't. But it's the easiest thing to go to.
Right.
Right. So I say, I just overcame the adversity. Oh, how did you overcome your adversity? And what they're referring to in my case, in this case example that we're talking right now, is the amputation of my left leg. Because they see me down the road having won a Paralympic silver medal and having, started a military sport program and all these successes in their mind.
Yeah.
And they say, you've overcome. But I haven't overcome the amputation of my left leg.
Right.
Because I would have my leg back. I have an artificial leg now. I can walk, I can get around, but it's not my flesh and blood leg.
Right.
So I haven't overcome that adversity that I've gone through. So there's things then, I think, that are parallel to that in our world.
Right.
And we said one a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
One we think we're getting back is this sense of normalcy. The sense of, I'm going to be certain about what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't get that back. We don't get back pre-COVID because we've been through COVID.
Yeah.
In America, we don't get back, and I think this happened. I'll use an example because I think this happened globally. Is with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, those that were underneath police brutality, right? We can't unsee that.
Right.
And so because of that, we need to, I believe, celebrate the adversities that we're going through because they're the press that allow us to become better. Right. I mean, if we don't go through something, then we get soft. We get fat like me, right? I'm just now buying for you gentlemen out there. I'm buying a diamond for my wife. It's a new 33 years of marriage, and so it's time for her to have a new diamond. But we all know how diamonds are made, right? Diamonds don't come out looking sparkling and fresh, and diamonds come out, and then they must go through a press. They must go through a fire. And the more that they go through, the more refined that they are. The less color that they'll have, and the more clear they are. Yeah. But that takes a very hard, adverse process to make. Gold, minerals, the same way, right? They go through the press to come out to what we want to put on our rings and around our ears and the chains, because we're not going to wear the black stuff that comes out of the ground around our neck. Right. It has to go through a refining process. And so we in 2020, I believe, are being refined.
Right.
So the question becomes, what are we being refined for? So that's why I see from the adversity.
And that's an interesting question. Like, what are we being refined for? Right. And something you raised quite interesting over there. Like, we keep on thinking of adversity and even this title, overcoming adversity, right? We think of it as something like we've got to get past and forget. We always think about it in that way. Like, I remember this very specific thing. I'm pretty sure this experience doesn't compare to what you've gone through, but that is also another point over there, and I'll come back to that. Personally, I remember this period of time in my younger life where, and I'm not afraid to admit it on air, I was a substance abuser when I was young. I did do cocaine. I did do marijuana. I was a real bad alcoholic at one point. And at that point when I was doing it, I didn't quite understand why did I go to that. Why did I go to those substances? What attracted me to the substances? And I used to use this line saying that, I was living in that environment. I was living in that life. I was doing that type of work, which made me do those things. I was around the circle of people. So I was pushing out the blame away from me. I didn't understand why I got attracted to it. And then came some health issues, then came monetary issues. So I remember the moment where that lifestyle caught up with me, and how being young and stupid, I was doing pretty good for myself, but I never really planned for the future. So I reached a point where I remember this was 2008. Everything went to crap for the world, especially with the economy.
Right.
I didn't prepare myself for that, and I literally went to zip zero. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. Um, I remember that harrowing experience of mine where I needed, and that time I was doing real estate. I was actually selling homes and buildings and things like that. I had to go for an appointment, and I was so desperate to close that appointment because I knew that I didn't have any money for food. I didn't have money for gas. I knew that was the last bit of gas I had in my car. And after the appointment, it didn't close. Gas ran out. I had to walk. I had to literally beg someone for money to get gas in a bottle and bring it back to my car, pour it in my car, and I left. But I remember that moment was when something clicked. Something did click. Um, and today I kind of understand it. It is that unraveling that needed to happen.
Yeah.
I think this is where, as people, maybe it's survival instincts. Maybe it's survival instincts where when we go through something hard, what we want to do is get away from that hard thing. Versus when we go through something hard, why are we going through that hard thing? And we never deal with those things. We never really understand what is that shaping us towards. What is that helping us towards?
Yes.
And I went through that process, and it took me a good 5 years to go through that process. It was not a short process. 5 years to go through that process of really bringing out all the skeletons in the closets, which kind of told me why actually I went through it towards the substances. And weirdly enough, when I did that, it prepped me to what I am right now, which I'm completely off every one of those. I can't take some of those anymore because it causes me bodily harm like immediately. I have an immediate bad reaction to it. Like I suck at having a drink. Like I have one drink and the next day I'm feeling like hammered, and I hate that feeling in the morning. But the reasons why I went through it is because I was sort of keeping down, or like keeping away in a closet, all these different difficulties and adversities that I went through in my life when I was a younger kid, being bullied, being overweight, how growing up my parents were, where unfortunately I didn't have the best relationships with them because they were from a different generation. So probably it's that clash of personalities. And when that came out, that kind of taught me like, okay, I needed to start dealing with these things. But it keeps on telling me that the only way these things can happen is when there's a crucible moment.
Yep.
When there's one key event that happens to you, which makes you really think. But the one thing I'm worried about is most people, when that key event happens, it's two sides of a coin. You either fall off the ledge completely, or you save yourself by falling on the correct side. And then you slowly crawl your way towards getting away from the ledge. Is that the only way?
No, I don't think so. And so here's why. Well, okay. Let me retract.
All right.
I think we have to have crucible moments, right? We have to have some light bulb that goes off. So I'll start there. But here's where I may disagree just a little bit. I think there's a scale.
Okay.
And the more that we learn, then the more that we see that crucible moment before it occurs or before it comes, because we understand that if I go down this path, if I go down this direction, I'm going to have this output that's going to come after me. Right. You just said it, right? You just said, okay, I went down for I had to understand myself over 5 years and explain why I did what I did to my body. And now I can't even have this drink because I know it'll cause me pain. So you have made a conscious decision because of this past experience that you had to make sure that I'm not going to do this again because I know the outcome. I know the output. So therefore, this crucible moment, I'm not going to put myself in that position again. And so I can therefore give hope to others because of my testimony, because of my story, to help them maybe get through that crucible moment faster because they may see my life example. Maybe that happens, right? But still, people have to understand it for themselves. And on the other side, where I see this as a challenge is once we get there, and I have this whole flow from journey to fear to freedom, which is kind of on the other side of my equation now. But when we are resolved and we have liberated ourselves to a point to where we're free from whatever it was, we have this burning desire, like to raise everybody else up, and then we want to beat them over the head. You need to come my way. You got to come my way.
I so feel that.
And it doesn't work.
Why are you not listening to me?
You need to listen to me. Right, exactly right. You're not listening. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? So what happens then is we have this passion. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with the passion, but it needs to be focused and directed into how we came to our experience. Who was it that got us to that point? Maybe in somebody's life, it's like you, who goes to the last real estate deal, and and they probably didn't buy because they felt your frustration and you're trying to push them so hard, because that was the vibe you were giving off, or maybe it's something totally different. But in any case, we can't make the person jump. We can't make that individual see it the way we see it,
right?
Because only we have that vision.
Right.
But what we can do is we can offer hope. Here's what my life looks right now. Here's what it used to look like. Here's what it looks like right now. This is what I did. Maybe you want to consider this. And I use the example of I was at amputee camp. There are all these kids, right? Like 150 kids run around, all amputees, some double leg amputees, arm amputees, and then we have a ropes course that's there, and all the kids swing across the ropes course. We're 50 feet off the ground. They're harnessed in. And I went up on the ropes course and I'm harnessed in, and there's this exercise that you have to go from these 5 discs, and each disc gets a little bit further and further apart, and you're 50 feet off the ground. So first disc number 1 I get to, easy. Disc number 2, a little bit harder, but I can make it. Third disc, no way, I can't make this. I can't make this jump. And all the little types are going by me, right? They're flying by me. Come on, Mr. Register, you can do it, Mr. Register. You got this. Let's go, right? And they get past me, fly. They're at the bottom, and they're all cheering for me. You can do it. I did it. You can do it. You can do it, Miss. And so it's all this great encouragement. But I'm still up there, 50 feet off the ground, not going, and no one can make me do it, right? It's either go back and go home, or I go forward, or I stay up there for the rest of my life. It's one, bring my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'm not leaving. Right. So eventually I do, right? And it's not and I make it across. It was a hard decision. I make it across and I get back down the ground. I'm never going back up there again, right? But the challenge, or the point then is, no matter how many people are screaming for you and believing in you that you can actually do it, and they see what you can't see for yourself,
right? You
have to be the one to make the choice. You are the one that has to own this. And so going back to what you say, this unraveling of life, it's happened to you, and you're kind of putting it all back together. And once you kind of get the spool, the twine back on the spool again, okay, now what is this going to be used for now?
Yeah.
What can I make now of my life that I've made? I committed and had the courage to make the jump. Because if we don't commit to it, here's what happens, Nigesh. If we do not commit to this jump, then I have to justify to myself why it is I was not courageous to make the jump. Was it fear of other people that held me back? Was it fear of myself? Was it fear of society? Who made my fear outweigh my hope?
But I got a question there, though.
Yeah.
I know we both can talk about it right here. I know you can say it because you've lived that life. How many other people actually think that way? Because I think for those who don't have this thought process going through them, they'll just say that, look, I can't do it. You know what? It's not worth my effort. I'm going back. They're not even going to rationalize it for themselves and leave aside a jump like that. What about real important things in life? Like example, let's use a very offshoot example where husband and wife, there's issues with the marriage, and husband decides, you know what, I need to go out and have a little bit of fun. But there's a mistake there. There is a mistake. The adversity is at home. You got to deal with that thing. You got to find a way around it. You got to rationalize, even like you said, that courage to actually say, I got to work this out with my partner.
Yep.
But most people usually don't, because either they're uncomfortable or, they don't really want to deal with it. They go like the lack of a better word, they say they take the easy way out, whether it's the easy way out or not. So in those kind of scenarios, like, is it the same? Is it the same? Like, you keep on shouting at them, you try to make them change, you try to get them to listen to you, or what's gonna give? What's gonna give for them?
You take out your hammer.
I'm sort of imagining this Bugs Bunny moment where, like.
So here's my response to that.
Yeah.
Is that there are tool levels, right? What's in your toolkit? What's in your bag that you have that will allow you, because like you said with the husband and wife, maybe they don't have the coping, the mechanism, the coping skills. So, and they don't speak they're not speaking their other language because maybe they've been living together for a long time, and when they get married, it's totally different, right? Because you feel like you're locked in now. I gotta do all these other things. It's like we talked about earlier with the new year. New year comes, and all of a sudden, turn the page. So what happens is, I think we need to go back to our first moments, our first memories of when we actually did make the leap. Because there are times in our lives, and they could be it doesn't have to be something big. It could be something. It could be the first time you didn't have enough money to pay for something, and you went into the store and you realized that when you got to the cashier register, and what did you do? Did you go put the item back, or did you try to hide it to go get it out, of the store?
Well,
very small.
One part of your mind is going to be like, I can't do this. I can get out of the store with this thing. And the other part of your mind is like, this is wrong. I got to go put it back.
And that's the choice, right? Yeah. That we all, and you're laughing because that's what we all have these choices, and they're very sometimes micro choices, but they do come up.
Yeah.
And so which voice are we going to listen to? Because, we would like to think that, I just put the candy bar back. But there are people that they got locked up because they took the candy bar.
Yeah.
So we see that on both sides of what choices that we're going to make in those moments. And I would say, if you take it out, if you take the candy bar out of the store, you're living in fear. And what's following after you now is, the next time you go in the store, did that store owner see me? Is he going to say something to me now? Is she going to call the police because I took something from them, and they caught it on videotape later that night? And so now we live in this fear and anxiety of who's watching me, who's following after me. And that causes a whole list of things to happen. So we begin to think about, what else did I do in my life that people are now watching me for? Who knew? Right. Who did they tell? And we get all these kind of stories we tell ourselves become embellished, and because we're living in this fear state. But if we don't take the bar, if we put the bar back, we don't live with that. We kind of live, our life continues. And maybe that gives us the thing to say, you know what? I need to earn what I earn. And in America, we have a lot of debt. We have a lot of credit, right? And I talk about it as in the state of entitlement. Because entitlement is purchasing something or getting something or gaining something that I have not yet earned. Right. So there it is. I mean, we have to earn what we earn, and that's the decision. Am I going to earn this?
That kind of made me think of this. Like, I was just talking to Sashi before you came on just now about because he was talking about a talk he heard recently. I think it was just yesterday, and it's about how human beings, the survival instincts of human beings, like when we are put in hard situations, we instantly actually know how to survive, but it's our worry that keeps us away from that. And then I went to this conversation of we sort of have two brains in us, in a sense, where we have that reptilian brain, which is the instinct-based brain, which is primal in nature, and we have the societal brain, which actually is logic-driven, but at the same time also driven by consensus. How do you live in a society?
Right.
And I think somewhere in that mix, and this is physics coming into it a bit, we all want quick gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there lies in a bit of the problem. Even your example with the whole candy bar thing, right?
Right.
Sure, I go into the store, I pick up the candy bar. I want it, but I don't have enough money. I don't have money to get this, but I really want this candy.
Yeah.
What I really want is this candy.
Right.
And most times, even in the case of the debt and loans that you take, what you want is that instant gratification of getting that thing.
Right. Yes.
And you make your choice based on that. And I think the thing that most human beings kind of suck at is, I think, taking the time to stop for a minute and really, like you said, go through that process of, okay, if I take this candy bar out the store right now without paying, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm. Well, what could happen?
What could happen,
yeah.
Right? If I leave it back where I took it from and walk out without it, sure, I'm going to feel sucky because I don't get the candy right there and then. But what could happen after that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the biggest problems that we have is we don't spend enough time to just stop and think. And even with my own example, I think one of the biggest problems I've had early on in my life is I reacted a lot.
Right. Right.
I reacted a lot, and come adversity, come anything difficult, I just reacted. I never stopped to think and, like you said, own that situation and understand what is on both sides of the coin on this decision that I'm going to make and how I'm going to go through it. And that, I think, is one big challenge that we got to deal with. Like, how do we get people to just take a breather for a while?
Yeah. That's great. What that made me think about was Malcolm Gladwell's book Blink. And we make these decisions in micro moments. So they go the whole process that you just explained out, right? We do it in a snap. We do it in a blink of an eye. And so I either want that instant gratification and I'm going to have it, or I'm going to put the candy bar back and I'm going to wait for it, right? And so the decision's made. Now we start wrestling with it, right? We said, well, I do this. We start justifying, right? So if I'm going to take it, I begin justifying to myself why I deserve it. And if I don't, then maybe I got to wait for it, but I'm going to earn it. So that and those have happened because of the periods of time in our life before when we made decisions like that. So that makes that snap decision that we have. I was
wow, that's something interesting as well. Like we keep on saying that whatever we build, skills that we build are things that we practice, habits that we make. So even this is a habit, right?
It's a habit.
Like, which we just make quick decisions without thinking. That's a habit.
Right. And so I don't know what may have been in that person's life before, what led them to this moment where they think they can get away with taking the candy bar from the store.
Right.
And I want the satisfaction. It's my satisfaction of me, the pleasure for me outweighs the proprietor of this store who's trying to sell to impact our community. So that my gratification is more important than everybody else's at this point. And that's why, credit's the same way, right? We put things on credit because I loathe credit. If I can do it, I'm cash and carry, right? It's, not that I don't have it, but it's cash and carry for me. Because if I do this, then I know I've earned what I purchased.
Right.
And I'm not paying the bank, over the course of, maybe your house is on mortgage or your car's on mortgage.
Right.
But the whole idea of I need this right now, do we really? I think what COVID taught us is that we can live a much more frugal life than what we used to think that we had to live.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think if something I've noticed over this past year is my expenditure. My expenditure is a lot lower than it's ever been because exactly what you said.
Right.
life can be very simple. We kind of confuse it sometimes with what actually we need and what actually we want.
Right. And going one step further, I guess, is that I made mention in earlier, I don't know if it was on the show or before the show we were talking
Mm,
that, in this transition, we're talking about transition of power, right? What we're going through in the United States right now, this transition of
yeah.
power. And it's really perceived power,
Mm,
in my opinion, because if you have power, you have total control, but you're not in this office, in this case, for you're not in the United States for our elections. You're not in office because of the power you have or the power the office has.
mhm,
You're there because the power of the people puts you there. And
mhm,
so you're supposed to be acting as a steward
mm,
over the office. So
mm,
you are beholden to the people who have the power that put
mm,
you there. Now, whether that's acted out right now is a different
mhm,
story. But that's the premise, right?
mm,
It's the premise, and it's the same thing I think is true when we hold on to things
mhm,
tangibly.
mhm,
Is it ours? Do we actually own it?
mhm,
Or are we being good stewards over
mm,
what we've been given because somebody else has the power?
mm,
And here's what I mean is we had in the United States 350,000 people, 1 in 1,000 people died of COVID last year.
yeah, yeah,
Stark number, horrific number. And then
yeah,
around the world, everybody that's been dealing with loss in this. But every one of those people who had property, every one of those
mm,
people who had money in the bank,
mm,
every one of those people who had relationships, all
mhm,
of that ended
mhm,
at their death.
yeah,
They didn't take anything with them
yeah,
when they passed on. It
yeah,
passed on to somebody else who
mhm,
now becomes a steward over what they had.
mm, mm,
So we have to look at really where that power is and do we actually have it? And that's
mm,
what I think helps us to live a more frugal life because
mm,
we feel that we don't own I know that I don't own this. Even my house I have, right? I'm
mm,
paying a mortgage for it, but
mm,
I'm thinking about legacy for my children.
right,
How do I pass this down for them to keep this in the family
right,
after I pass on, right? Because I'm not
right,
taking this with me.
right,
So
right.
yeah.
That's interesting. Even to think about it in a very basic term, by breathing, living, we're basically renting space on Earth.
Yes, absolutely.
We're just renting space on Earth. Um, I kind of want to talk to you about this bit. Like, I don't want to miss the point that you made just now about this whole. When we started, we talked about adversity is not dealing with it and putting it aside and hoping that you go back to what you were. It
Right.
is actually working with it and becoming a new version of yourself, right?
Right.
I really don't want to miss that point because it's very strong, and I wholesomely, I know this is supposed to be a debate, but I kind of agree with this as well, where it is, you're always reimagining yourself. You always, as you deal with something, as you work on something for yourself, even the smallest thing, even the smallest thing, when you work on it on yourself, you're actually becoming a different version of yourself every day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're just reinventing yourself as you move forward.
Mhm.
But some things you made over there, like being stewards, being good stewards, right? And when you think of it, of like, okay, if let's say I've gone through this learning process of how to own my choices, have courage, or the courage to actually discuss even within myself to make this choice or not to make this choice.
Yes.
And then you made the point of, it's very natural for us as human beings because we are built in a manner to ensure that our species survives. So it's natural for us to want to pass that on to somebody else, to teach somebody else, to
Yes.
show somebody else that you can do this as well. But I think there is also a bit of a risk there, or a danger in that, and I feel it sometimes as well, where that whole, I'm trying to teach this person, I'm trying to guide this person, show this person, but this person's just not getting it, or this group of people is just not getting it.
Yeah.
And I think there is a problem there where either you get so frustrated that you start doubting, is this the right way even?
Mm, mm.
Or the other side of it where, and it's, I know it's a bad example, but even talking about people who are so sure, that that is the only right way, and they get frustrated with everyone else, and they get angry with everyone else, and they say everyone else just don't know what they're doing. They just don't know what they're doing because I try to teach and they don't get it. I've learned these lessons and they don't get it. And I think there is a danger there as well. One is you start doubting yourself, and the other is you become too assured of yourself that you don't listen.
Right.
Yeah, and I think there's a problem there. But how do you see that? Do you see that that is a danger, and maybe like how do you deal with it? Because I think it's a cycle, right? It never ends. It keeps on happening again and again and again.
I think there is a very real danger there on both sides, because it takes not into account of why you might be there on the other. I call it, so maybe I should go and kind of unpack my model. Then it'll make a lot more sense. And I'll try to do it really quick here. On this journey from fear to freedom, think about this. For those that are listening out in the audience, of three buckets, right? We'll just call 3 buckets. And each bucket, or maybe is that a good analogy? Yeah, we'll keep with the buckets right now. So think about one bucket pouring into the next bucket.
Right.
And if it gets too full, we go to the next bucket. Maybe it's not the best analogy, but we'll go with it.
Like those champagne glasses in weddings where you pour it from the top and just
exactly. I don't know if it's the best example, but we'll just go with it and see how far it goes.
Yeah.
In the first bucket we have our fears.
Yeah.
Fear of ourselves. For me, I was thinking when I first lost my leg, will my wife still stay with me? Will my son still see me as his father? Do I still have a job in the military? Can I support my family? These were my initial fears. And like you're saying, it's the dinosaur reaction, right? I got to protect myself. The second one, though, can be looked at 2 ways. One is other people. Other people, not really our immediate family and not society, but other people, our friendships that are around us, are those individuals who are trying to believe for us what we can or cannot do, which is based upon what they believe they could not do, would or would not do if they were in our situation. So it's not really them acknowledging where we are. It's really them trying to make themselves feel comfortable with who we used to be.
Right.
They need to feel okay about me now associating with you, John, the amputee.
Right.
And I don't know if I'm there yet. So I may say things like, it's going to be all right. You'll get over this. You'll get past it. You're going to overcome the adversity. And they're coming from a standpoint of what they think they would do or say if they were in my situation. Those are thoughts they want me to think I need to hear. Right. That you're accepted. So it's not about you, really. It's not about me. It's about them feeling comfortable. Okay. So that's that side. But I'm listening to them. So it could be about what I'm listening to from them. So that's the second part of it. But I don't really share with that because that really kind of covers in the first fear. It's a good fruition of the fear. The third thing is society. Society now dictates to us and says to us who we should show up as. Am I fearful because I watched the Walt Disney movie and I see Captain Hook? Captain Hook's an amputee. He's the villain of Peter Pan in the Disney movie, and he's dark, he's mysterious, he's scary. But wait a minute, I'm an amputee now.
Right.
Am I the dark, mysterious, and scary person? Or does society tell me that I'm supposed to be afraid and fearful?
Right.
That I'm supposed to be so afraid of what is in front of me that I go to the U.S. Capitol and burn it down? The fears that society has told. Who told me to do that? And why did I listen? To cause this destruction and mayhem. And this is, and it could be for our own lives, right? It could be the destruction of our life. Who told me to do these things? Or who do I blame it on?
Right.
So then we have this false summit. So the false summit is in Colorado, we have mountains. Yeah. And so the Rockies, the Rocky Mountains, yes, the whole range. And so as you walk up if you're climbing the Rocky Mountains, you will get to a point where there becomes what we call a false summit, which means you think you're at the top, but you're really not at the top.
Right.
Usually it's there's a valley that goes after it, and then you got to come up the other
Right.
side of the valley. So
Right.
so it's a false summit. If there's a mountain behind the mountain.
Right.
And what we believe we're doing is we believe we're rebuilding our life. I just got to get my life back. If I can just get my life back, everything is going to be fine.
Right.
Right. So for me, that's if I had overcome the amputation of my left leg, I'd have my life back. I can't wait till things get back to normal. Well, I guess this is our new normal. And we say this falsely because we don't get that back. We never have. We never had certainty, except from what you said. I'm certain over the choice that I will make. I don't know what the outcome it will produce. I think I know, but I'm going to make this choice. That's what we're certain of. That's what we want. That's what we need back. We need to be more certain of that. But we're building on that foundation, which is a false foundation. And what we're building is this redefining of ourselves. And we're trying to we're discovering that foundation is not as strong as I thought it was. That foundation is going, or that the foundation is okay. I'm going to live in the shattered, battered house on this rocky foundation and go back to my fears. But when hope outweighs the fear that I have, I will make the commitment. I will make the choice to actually release, let go of, amputate the fear, and embrace a new normal mindset, which now gets us into the third bucket, this rebirthing. And we think when we make the jump, we think when we make the commitment that it's going to be easy. And usually we find out that it's not easy. It's a lot harder because you made the commitment and you have these reverberations, what I call phantom sensations or phantom pains, like my leg. I had phantom pains. I still have phantom pains and phantom sensation. I feel my leg is still there. So I have remnants of the old self, but I'm living in this new existence. And I have to understand how I'm going to become stronger in this side of this rebirth. Think about the analogy of a baby trying to learn to walk again. I'm sorry, learn to walk, right? They reach up on the couch. They go across the coffee table. And they're trying to have hope that they will walk like their parents in the house. And they're trying to hold on to things. That's why we don't want to, on the stove, we want to move the pots and pans so that the handle is not outward, because they'll try to grab it if they fall, right? And it could be dangerous for them. But once they learn to walk, who's going back to crawling?
Exactly.
I have the taste of walking now. I'm not going back. And that's the resolve. That's the place where I'm resolute in who I am. I know exactly who I am. But going to your point, this is the danger of this is saying, if that baby who just learned to walk goes back to all the crawlers and says, you got to walk. This is the best thing ever. And they start beating over the head with it because you're not walking. Let me help you get up. Get up. You can do it. Push. Right? But baby falls over. Because they have to learn this for themselves.
Right.
And it's the other side too. So that's the arrogant side.
Right.
But if the person is saying, you can all walk, you can do it, we can make it, let's get up, walk, do it. No, you fell over. Let's again, walk. Oh, you're just never going to get it. Maybe I'm just teaching it wrong. Right. And so that's the other side of this fear that we have. And so both of those things are not wrong per se, but you discovered how to walk on your however you got to it, you did it. You made it happen. You were the one that had it, but you saw it before you. You got a chance to see it modeled before you, and then in your own time, you came to that realization, and you took that courageous step, and now you're off and walking, and then walking to running, and running to jumping, and all these things that happen because you took that leap. Right. So that is how I kind of answer that question on these both sides. This redefining moment, this resolve. When I won the silver medal in the long jump in Sydney, Australia, a reporter who knew me in my previous life as a Olympic class athlete and an All-American from the University of Arkansas, said, John, you jumped against Carl Lewis. You ran against Michael Johnson, these amazing icons.
You did?
Yeah, I did. So do you think with artificial limb, and you can see it in the background over here, my picture, I don't know if everybody else can see it, but
I can see it.
That's the pin relays. and we just won the
Right.
pin relays in the distance medley relay. So we set a
Holy
record
cow.
at the pin
Wow.
relays. So all these things, and this afternoon I'm actually in U.S. time. I'm actually hosting Ronaldo Skeets Nehemiah, the first person to break 13 seconds in the 110-meter high hurdles. And all of these things that I went through, she says, do you think with artificial limb technology that you could do the same thing? Could you run against these folks and jump against them with artificial limb technology? And I thought about a question for like a split second. I said, no, I can't do that.
And do we
However,
even want to?
yeah, that's another question. Absolutely. Why would I want to? But the question that she's asking, remember what I said about others. Other people believing for me what I can or cannot do, which is based on what they believe they could or could not do or would not do if they were in my situation.
Right.
The question is coming from that space. Because my answer is, maybe your question should be, if God forbid, Carl Lewis or Michael Johnson lost a limb, could they run as fast or jump as far as I do?
Yeah.
They need, because I'm less likely to grow a leg back than they are to lose one.
You made me pause for a moment there. Like, think about that. Now, for the folks who are listening to this, just imagine what John just said.
Think about that just for a minute. And that's,
you're right. You're right.
And so now I know what it took from 6 years of having the amputation to using a wheelchair to get around to my prosthetic appointment, to donning a prosthetic leg, to walking in the parallel bars, to getting a 4-bar walker so I could walk around the hospital on this artificial leg, to going to crutches, to going then to a cane to free walking, then from free walking into swimming into running into jumping. That entire process took 6 years. You said it took 5 years to come to your realization.
Yeah.
Because people think it's easy once you make the redefining moment from that jump that you made. And it's not. There's some work that you have to do to get to the liberating moment, to the freedom moment. So where you can make a statement like that to say, no, they need to catch up to where I am. You need to catch up. I'm here now. And it's not braggadocio. This is your experience of what you have learned and now where you are. It's not based upon somebody else's thought, the society, somebody telling you all this stuff. It's what you have discovered. It's what you have learned. And it's wholeheartedly. So now I don't go back and tell somebody else. You can make it too. I mean, I can say that, and I do say that, but I'm not pushing them.
Right.
I'm not pulling them because you need to be like me. No, you have your own life to live. Maybe you don't want to be a Paralympic athlete. Maybe you just want to walk your daughter down the aisle or your son and go out and go skiing with them or do something at a higher level. Maybe that's success for you.
Interestingly, that's you being a good steward then.
Absolutely. You're being a steward over what you've been given, the gift that you have been given. And that equals your freedom. That equals your liberation. You're at the highest peak of the mountain, right? Your bucket is full. You're at the highest peak. But now you want others to join you.
Right.
So you can do one of two things. You can walk back down the mountain and go bring somebody with you. I don't want to go to that mountain. I like the other mountain over there. Right? Or you can yodel down to them and say, hey, the view's great up here. Come on up. And they figure out their pathway of how they're going to get up their own mountain. And they're on I want to go on that mountain over there. Okay, I'll see you over there. You go over there. And so now when you're up on top of everybody's on top of these mountains, you can call out to each other. There's no barrier. There's no resistance. And it's fun. Yodeling is fun. Yodeling, right? So you can, and it bounces back. And the more that you yodel, the more people, what's going on up there? I want to go up there too.
Right.
And so they rise up to their mountains. They get past their redefining moment. They make their commitment to jump and then rise up to where you are. So we have more people on the mountaintops playing and sharing with each other.
That makes me think of an analogy that I was talking about to a few people over the past few years. And I see this as a goal that I have right now, where whatever I do, I'm not doing it only just to be the best at what I do. I'm doing it so that I can make myself pass that on to somebody else so that I lose a job. Like I do that actively. So example, if I'm in a particular role right now, what I'm actively doing right now is to ensure that I lose the job by empowering others. And I think I'm thinking about that whole mountain and bucket thing. It's the whole idea of you fill your bucket up full, whether it's yodeling or whether the bucket's overflowing and flowing down the mountain, and people are saying, where's this water coming from? I want to get up there and check it out.
Right, right.
And you calling people to come up. And I think that the biggest thing a person can do, and for me, this is where you really are reaching that peak, is when enough people have reached up there and you say, okay, here's the whole bucket. Now it's up to you to do the rest. I'm leaving this bucket here with you. I'm going to take an empty bucket and go up another mountain.
Right.
And that's when that whole journey that you spoke about starts all over again. And you start creating a whole different version of who you are. And that whole process happens again. And you become, every time you work on it, you reach up there, you become a good steward. And another way I understand something you said, hope. You hope, of all hopes, that people are going to come at their own time. And that's all you can hope for. People are going to come at their own time. All you can do is do your best, and hopefully you can pass the bucket on to somebody else so you can go to another mountain.
Yeah, I think that's one way to look at it for sure. Yeah. And that we're passing the bucket, we get up, we go to the higher mountain. Maybe there's, we want to go up the different with the higher one, right? So we can see. Or we can look at it as a way in which our buckets they really don't always get filled. And the more I pour out, the more can be poured in. Yeah. So.
All right, so I'm going to be sensitive about time a little bit, and producer Sashi is already messaging us in the corner saying that, look, you're already at 60 minutes and being all kind about it. Gentle reminder. But John, thank you so much. You made me think about a few things. You really made me think about a few things today, and I want to take away this thing right now for myself right now, and I hope those listening, somewhere in here you take away different things. But for me, the thing I really took away with our conversation is, for one, it's that whole thing where adversity is not something you get over. It's something you work on so that you move on to another part of you. And you got to really be conscious about it and courageous about it to actually deal with it. And the other thing is the whole idea of being a good steward and having hope. And it's not hope that has some sort of conjecture to it. It's not a hope that has some sort of result that you're looking for. It's just hope that things will work its way, and it has its own way to work itself out.
Yeah, I love it. That's I would love to know, from the listening audience, what you learned and what insight that you had, and why did you have the insight? What was going on in your life before you had this insight?
Right.
That's that's where the work becomes, right? When the insight happened from this show, from what other Nigesh or myself said, what insight came, and then why did it come? Why did it come to you? What was going on in your life that caused this insight to happen? Because that's where the work starts beginning.
Right, and awesome. So this show will be placed on all the existing platforms out there, like Facebook, LinkedIn. We'll tag John in it as well, and John may put this on his platforms as well. We'll put it on Necole as well, and not to forget, the show is brought to you by Necole. Shameless plug, got to do that. But for those who have been part of Bounce Back and heard John over there, that's an experience right now. I think the one thing that this year has taught us is there's different ways and different places we can actually build ourselves and get things to help ourselves, and Necole is one of it. John, before we sign off, I still remember the last time I spoke to you, you were on a writing retreat. So anything you want to shout out to anybody out there to look forward to something that it's going to come out from you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I have one book out already. It's only on what do you call it, like Amazon or Kindle, I think. It's called 10 Power Stories to Impact Any Leader. Journal Your Way to Leadership Success. It's just 10 of my stories that I generally do not share in an audience format, but you get a chance to read through. And then there's an activity, there's an exercise that happens afterwards where now that becomes the impetus for you writing a story or a series of stories for yourself.
Right.
And then at the end of the book, you should have at least 10 stories that you can, rely and call on. So that's a journaling activity. The book that I'm really writing right now is called, there's no real title for it, but it's based upon my life and kind of the things that we just talked about today, and this whole process, this journey that we go on. So it's kind of like a biography with a little bit of teaching in it that will, kind of share the journey. So I don't want to do 2 books because I think that, I think it should all just be in one. So maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong. I don't know. Folks can tell me that. But that's what's coming out. I'm hoping that gets out before the anniversary of my injury amputation, which is in May of this year, 2021. So so those 2 things are coming out.
All right. And I think for those of y'all who are listening, if you want to get those books, Amazon, Kindle, and actually the easiest way, it's really easy. Just go online, go to Google, just type out John Register and you'll find him. But don't mistake, I think there's another John Register who's a painter and artist as well. So don't look for that John Register. Look for the John Register who you see right now, who is inspirational speaker, author, Paralympic, who's been in the Army as well. So if you see those key things, that's the John Register you're looking for. All right, John.
The other guy's dead. So.
Okay, I didn't go that far because I didn't check out the other guy. All right, John. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been a long day over there, and I know you've got it's morning over there. You've got a long day planned as well. Thank you so much for carving out time with us.
Thank you, Nigesh. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, John. And for those of y'all listening to Talk to Me, thank you so much for being here. Remember, Talk to Me is brought to you by Necole. And join us again. Next week, we'll have another episode, another conversation. And you decide which point of view you agree with.